So today I'm going to walk you through how to create this dense, realistic fog effect, and let's jump straight into it. Now, to do this effect, I'm using DaVinci Resolve Studio and Adobe products. However, I know most people don't have access to both of those things, so this effect can be done in either one of those programs, and I'll show you how to do that. But if you have access to both, I'm going to kind of walk you through my workflow. I use both because I think both programs have their own strengths when it comes to this effect. So let's get started. To do this effect, you're going to need basically four things. First of all, this is designed for static shots, not for moving shots. I haven't figured that out. You let me know if you figure that out. Next, you're going to need your actor, ideally in front of a blue screen. Today, the shot I'm going to show you is in front of a blue screen. However, it can be done with roto, with mixed results. I'm going to do a future tutorial on that. And then next, you're going to need a clean plate of your background, which means just an empty shot of your background. Have your actor step out and just record a couple seconds. If you don't have that, you can take a screenshot and use Photoshop's generative fill in order to create that clean plate, and that will work. And then lastly, you're going to need a depth map, which is kind of the secret ingredient for this, and I'm going to show you how to create that later in the tutorial using either DaVinci Resolve Studio or Adobe Photoshop. So let's jump into it. Use the chapter markers for sure in this thing. This tutorial is not as long as it seems because I'm showing you how to do this in either of these programs. So let's jump into it. So the first thing we need to do is key our footage. And I prefer to do my keying in DaVinci Resolve Studio just because I think the keyer is a little bit more robust. But if you do this in After Effects, that's totally fine too. So in DaVinci Resolve Studio, to key, we've got our clip of our actor here, and we've got our clip of our background. Let's go to our actor clip. And to get started, if you've shot your footage in log, like I have here, you're going to want to do color space transform in order to make this Rec 709, because you're going to pull a better key with all the contrast and stuff. So let's go. Let me show you. I'm going to hit Shift Spacebar to pull up nodes, and I'm going to type in color space transform and hit enter. Now what you'll want to do is change this input color space to your camera. So I shot this on the Panasonic Lumix S5, so Panasonic VCam for that. For input gamma, we want Panasonic Vlog. Output color Rec 709 is good. Output gamma, I usually change this to 2.2 or 2.4. Honestly, not 100% confident on that, but I think gamma 2.4 will work well for this. Actually, let's do 2.2. I was having some issues earlier with keying some of this stuff. Let's see what 2.2 does. Experiment with that. So let's go on to the key. So next we're going to do Shift Spacebar again and type in Delta keyer. And if you have problems with the keying, go find a real keying tutorial. This is my speed round. So first we need to take the eyedropper tool, drag it over near our actor onto the blue. And let's move to the pre-matte tab. I'm going to change the view to pre-matte. And we're going to click and drag on the blue around the actor. Now you don't want to go too far with this. We don't want this to eat into like the actor at all. The idea is just to get rid of the blue around the actor. We'll just call that good. So let's go to final results and then move over to matte. I'm going to change the view mode to matte to see what's going on. So the black looks good, but we are getting some noise in here, and we want to change that to white because right now it's kind of grayish black. That means it's going to be partially transparent, and we don't want that. So to fix that, I'm going to go to threshold. I'm going to take the high and lower this down. Now we don't want to go too far because then we run into other problems. I don't usually like to go below 0.8, so let's just leave it at 0.8. We'll change this to final results. It looks pretty good, but you can see there is some noisiness in here, which could probably still work. But if we mess with replace mode, sometimes this can have an effect. So like that, looks much better. It's a little bit not as contrasty now, but I think we could add that back. So I'm gonna stick with that. And obviously we need to remove the background. So to do that, we're gonna hit Shift Spacebar. I'm gonna type in Polygon, which is basically the mask tool, and Dissolve. And for some reason, it always puts it into the effects mask input. We don't want that. So just click and drag to remove that. And instead, click this and drag it down to this bottom right one, which is the garbage matte input. It moves it automatically. And then all you got to do is click and drag around your actor, the area you want. It's pretty simple. Okay. And I'm going to hit invert. There we go. Just like that, we got our key and it looks good there. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do this in After Effects now. Okay, so over in After Effects, let's tackle the keying. So I've got my clip of my actor against the blue screen here, and you're going to want to convert this to like Rec 709 to actually get the best key with like all the contrast and the vibrancy. So to do that, you'll add a Lumetri color to the clip here. I've already got it on here. And then you'll have to look on your camera's manufacturer's website to see if they have a LUT for you to convert from log to Rec 709. So I've got that on here. So you would just go down to Browse and find that file and click it, and then it will apply it here. So we got that good to go. Now let's go ahead and add key light. We will take the eyedropper tool, click near our actor here, and then let's open the screen matte. I'm going to change this mode to screen matte. You can see what's going on. So the black looks good here. However, he looks kind of splotchy. So let's go ahead and turn this clip white down. And as a rule of thumb, I don't like to go below like 80 or 85. Let's try 80 there. And yeah, he still looks a little, looks like kind of noisy. So I would mess with the replace mode. And I think, yeah, the hard color mode looks a lot better. Source can also work, but it's adding kind of a blue tint. So let's leave that on hard color there. And that should work for this. So you can also mess with screen gain, screen balance. I don't like to go too far on those things, but those can help as well. We could get 105. We're just going to leave that alone for now. And then obviously we want to get rid of the background stuff here. So let's draw a garbage matte around him. I'm just going to hit G to bring up the pen tool. Draw a quick mask around him here. There we go. Okay. I'm going to send it back over to DaVinci for the depth map part. Okay, so let's move on to the depth map. So to create a depth map in DaVinci, we are going to go down to our clean plate footage. So we can open the clean plate footage over in the Fusion tab here. And if you've got them both stacked like this, make sure you actually click on your clean plate footage clip. I've already applied the color space transform because I shot this in log. So let's go ahead and add our depth map. And to do that, all you got to do is shift space and type in depth map. And it will take just a second. There we go. So you can hit invert here to kind of get and to wrap your head around what's going on. But just imagine the white as the fog, and if it's completely black, there's no effect at all. So right now the fog is kind of shrouding this background area with these hills. And that's pretty much what I want. Maybe I will adjust this a bit. So to adjust it, we just go down, click this adjust map levels. And if you crank up the far limit, it's going to shroud the background even more. And this is set in the late 20s, so we do want to get rid of this bulldozer here. I could go in Photoshop and remove that, but I don't think we're going to need to. And for the near limit, I think I want it to be not so foggy up where my actor is. You can mess with these levels here. And this is why I prefer to do this effect, the depth map creation in DaVinci Resolve Studio, because you get to mess with these far limit and near limit parameters. Unfortunately, doing this in Photoshop, you just kind of get what it gives you, and you can make further tweaks. But if you can, generate the depth map in DaVinci Resolve Studio. Now, my preferred method is to actually now head over to After Effects to composite it all together. So if you were to do that, what I would do is go over to the Color tab. Oh, actually, let's turn off the actor layer. So we're just seeing the depth map. All right, so this is our depth map. What we need to do is basically just right click. We're gonna grab a still of it. And then if you right click on that and do export, this will let you save the photo. I would probably just do a PNG. And then you can import that into After Effects. If you're using just DaVinci Resolve Studio, we're gonna continue on. I'm gonna show you how to create this effect completely inside DaVinci. If not, jump on over to the After Effects portion now. Okay, so to create this effect in DaVinci Resolve, basically we just need to merge this original footage with this. So to do that, it's a little hard to wrap your head around the nodes, at least for me. But what we need to do is basically, I'm going to click off of these nodes and hit Shift Spacebar and type in merge. And what we want to do, I'm going to unhook this from the depth map. What we want to do is run the media in straight into the depth map. And then we're going to run, if you don't have log footage, you just go run the media in straight into merge, but we've got a color space transform in between here. So run that into there and go ahead and unhook the depth map from the media out. We don't want that. Hook the depth map into the foreground of the merge and then hook the merge into the media out. And it looks the same, but it's not. All we need to do now is click the merge node and change the apply mode, the screen mode. Let's change that to screen, and you can see our fog effect. Now it's a little intense right now, so we can dial that in by clicking into the depth map node, and let's tweak like the far and the near limit. I think I want less fog in the foreground, so I'm gonna lower this. Something like that is good. The far limit, I think it's actually too much right now, so let's lower that down a little bit. Yeah, I kind of like seeing what's going on in the background. I guess you can kind of see the bulldozer, which I don't love, but something like that will work. And then one thing I don't love right now is it feels a little strong, like you can kind of see this effect on top of the grass here. And we want to kind of smear that and blur it a little bit. I'm going to do Shift Spacebar. I'm going to type in Gaussian blur. Did I spell that right? Or is it? Yeah, it's AU. Okay, so Gaussian blur and crank this baby up. Yeah, that's better. Now, I don't really like how we can see this, so we could tweak the it's going to post-processing. I'm going to turn that down a bit. Actually, this is at 0.5. It's up. We can mess with the contract expand. Let's see. Which way do we need to go? Yeah. If we pull that down, now it's kind of starting down here. I'm going to mess with the far limit again. Blur that out even more. Yeah, something like that. That looks good. So you could tweak that all day, but we'll call that good for now. And let's turn our actor layer back on. And there we go. We got the two of these things combined. Okay, so over here in Adobe land, I'm going to show you how to create a depth map. So what you're going to need is a still image of your clean plate background. So in After Effects, I'm just going to do save frame as, and you could save that as a Photoshop file or, a PNG file, I think. Yeah, doesn't really matter. But go ahead, save that out, and then bring that into Photoshop. Okay, so in Photoshop to generate the depth map, all we need to do is go to Filter, Neural Filters. Click on this depth blur slider and click Output Depth Map Only. Now, unfortunately, the big difference between this and DaVinci Resolve Studio is that in Studio, you really get to tweak the distance, like when does the background disappear, how much of the foreground is black, and you get to just mess with those levels. And unfortunately, in Photoshop, for some reason, you can mess with these sliders, but it doesn't seem to have any effect of when you click the Output Depth Map Only. So you just need to hit OK. And then save that file out. File export, export as. You just save that as a PNG. And then you're going to import that into After Effects. Okay, so it's compositing time over in After Effects. So real quick, for those of you who are kind of doing my ideal method of importing a DaVinci Resolve depth map and a Photoshop depth map, I'm going to show you the difference between those two really quick. And I'll show you in a minute too after the effects. So this is the DaVinci Resolve Studio depth map, and this is the Photoshop depth map. So you can see the Photoshop depth map kind of has everything in the image, whereas the DaVinci Resolve Studio one, we've kind of dialed in where we want the fog to disappear. But we can thankfully, make some tweaks in After Effects to sort of compensate for that. So for now, I'm gonna show you the Photoshop one, and then I'll show you the DaVinci one later to compare. The principles are the same though. So to get started, what we need to do is create a solid layer, and I'm gonna go ahead and use the eyedropper tool and just click the sky to get a baseline for what fog color we want. Go ahead and drag that under the actor layer here. And then what we're going to do is come over to our effects and presets and type in gradient wipe. Drag that onto the solid. And then for your gradient layer, go ahead and click your depth map. And then we can see what's going on here. So if we slide this transition complete, it's pretty cool. You can kind of see the depth in the image. So this whole gray area is where it's going to be foggy. Now, obviously, we don't want it like this. So if you crank up the transition softness, suddenly we're starting to get fog in here. And just like that, it looks pretty good. And we could also mess with the blur here. If we did a Gaussian blur, that can kind of help hide this line up here a bit. See if that's doing anything. Actually not doing that much. Maybe that helps more in DaVinci Studio. Oh, now it's just kind of muddy, but yeah, that is doing something. So yeah, you can tweak with that too. One thing I really love about doing this in Photoshop is that you can duplicate this fog layer and then, continue to tweak the gradient wipe. So you could make certain sections more foggy or less foggy. And that really comes in handy when you start, if you have certain things in the image that you sort of want to obscure, it really gives you fine-tuned control over that. Now, real quick, I want to show you what the difference between the Photoshop depth map is and the DaVinci one. So right now we have the Photoshop one selected. I'm going to select the DaVinci one, which I have underneath the Photoshop one here. They're both turned off. You just select them in this effect. Yeah. So you can see, I'm going to turn off the Gaussian blur so you can see what's going on a little bit more. So you can see the Photoshop one, there's a much clearer line that gives the effect away a little bit. Whereas in the DaVinci one, it's a little bit more subtle. And I feel like you get a little bit more fine-tuned control. Now, some more tips when it comes to the fog here. You could duplicate these fog layers and, you know, tweak the positions. You could also invert the gradient. So if you wanted, rather than the background to be all foggy, maybe you want to add a little fog to the foreground. You can mess with that as well. Combine those as you please. You could also add fractal noise if you don't want it to just be kind of a uniform shape to the fog. Let's see, I'm going to look at the gradient white. I'm just going to solo this layer so we can see what's going on. Actually, let me do the other one because the foreground fog I think is a little goopy. So let's add the fractal noise in between here. And you can mess with these settings however you want. Let's try smeary, the linear. Maybe turn the scale up a lot so it looks more fog-like. And that doesn't look great, but we change the blending mode here. Turn the brightness down. But definitely mess with the brightness and the contrast. But it's just kind of nice that it breaks it up a little bit, and you could also keyframe this evolution slider, and now suddenly you can create a slow bit of dynamic movement in the fog, which is pretty nice. Another thing you could do is add a tint effect, and then we could also, you know, further tweak the color of the fog. It doesn't have to be the color of the sky. You know, it could be cool to have just a little bit of like a moody blue tint, bluish greenish tint to the fog. Makes it even more foreboding. Another thing that you could do is import fog assets, and you can actually use the depth map. And I found that this really kind of lets you sell the fog a bit more because it feels more like it's actually in the scene where it should be and it's falling off correctly. So let's see, I imported this wispy ground asset, and if I'm just going to copy and paste the gradient wipe onto here. And it looks goofy right now because we need to change the screen. I'm going to change it to screen. Let me just solo it so you can see what's going on. But yeah, this is pretty cool. If we convert it. Yeah, like, I mean, look at the difference between that and without the gradient wipe. And of course, you can mess with the softness. I'm going to send it back over to DaVinci once I'm happy with how I have this dialed in. You know, you may also want to mess with the Lumetri color. I feel like the actor could be a little darker in this gloomy environment. But once you're happy with the, you know, the foreground layer and the background layer, I am going to send that clip over to DaVinci Resolve to do the final grade. I don't really like grading in Premiere or After Effects. There's plenty of tutorials that you could look up to do that. I'm not going to show you that part because I just don't feel confident in that, but I do like doing that in DaVinci Resolve, so I'm going to show you that now. Okay, so we're in DaVinci and I've got my clip imported. We're in the color tab. So I'm just going to add a couple nodes real quick. And I am not a professional colorist, guys. You should definitely check out some professional colorists like Darren Mostyn. It's on screen. Okay, so I'm gonna add my Dehancer Pro node at the end here. I am an affiliate with Dehancer. I just love using it, especially for this film that's set in the 20s. I think the film grain look and the bloom and everything is just great. It's a really fast, easy result that you can get with it. It is really expensive. I get it. You can use my affiliate code Obscurity. And I would also just look into grading tutorials for DaVinci. DaVinci has recently come out with some film looks that are built into the studio version. You can get some great looks in it. I just think you can get maybe slightly better looks faster with Dehancer. All right, so all that said, dragging Dehancer on here. And right off the bat, I always like turning on elation and bloom. Adds a ton. Okay, so Kodak Vision is a little intense here. And it's not like this is the final look right now, but I usually do like to pick something off the bat that I think looks a little more natural. A lot of times I like going with this Fuji Pro. It seems to work well for the scenes I'm using recently. And I like moving the pole to whatever looks good for the skin tones. You go a little more to the right here. Okay, let's leave that alone for right now. And this first node, I usually like to mess with the exposure in this one. It looks pretty good already. We kind of already tweaked all the levels before we even brought it in. But, you know, you can mess with it a little bit more. Seems nice with a little extra contrast here. You know what? Before I go any further, I'm actually going to try adding the print because that is going to drastically change the look as well. So you can mess with all these. The Kodak Endura is always nice if you just want a slightly more contrasty, subtle look. But recently I have been messing with these Fuji and Kodak print film profiles just because I think it is actually closer to film if that's what you're going for, and that is kind of what I'm going for in this movie. So let's mess around with this some more. You can see the nice halation going on there. Let's go back to this layer and see if there's anything I want to tweak here. Yeah, maybe a little more contrast. Let me look at my parade here, just see what's going on. See if we want to drop the shadows even more. I kind of like a dark, moody look for this. Okay. Looks pretty good right there. We can also mess with, on this node, I usually like to just sort of play around with the color. You know, we can make it more blue. Let's go to the vector scope, and if you have this show skin tone indicator turned on, you get this nice line here. And basically, if you keep, we can go with the eyedropper tool here. This will show you where you're at. So if you can keep this close, usually on the line, either the left of it or the right of it or right on it, that is usually going to look pretty good. And we're almost there with the skin tones. Actually, let's mess with that right now. I usually add another node here just to dial in the skin tone. I go over to this color warper, usually change this to 8. And if you just use the eyedropper tool, be very subtle with this. It's way easy to get out of control, but look, you can trim into the hole and undo. Undo. You know, you can take this and kind of drag it over closer to that line. It's going to add just a little bit, and you could pull it down if you feel like that's too much saturation. But yeah, something like that. Now we're like almost right on the line. You got a little bit of nice pink hue to the skin. And that will, you know, let us push this even further while making the skin still look good. Let's go back to Dehancer. You know, at this point, this is just kind of me goofing around till I find something that looks good. Professional colorist would have a much clearer picture of what to do here. Papering this exposure down just a little. I don't want to get in trouble for going too low on the exposure, but I just like a moody image. See what happens with the color density. I think let's get that. Yeah, color density is a nice feature, and Dehancer as well. Just can help the skin look a little bit nicer. Yeah, I'm liking this moody image. Okay. Another thing you could do, that kind of a final note on here. It is fun to play around with the effects in Resolve. Glow. Just see what this is going to do to the background. Probably going to go like crazy. It stays in overload. Maybe it's too subtle. Oh, there we go. So, you know, if you wanted to, you could play with the glow just a little bit, and that's kind of interesting. Adds a little eerie life fog. See, so this is before Dehancer and after, and then with the glow on there, which you can see pretty big difference in the before and the after. So there's my tutorial. If you guys want, I am planning on making another tutorial which will kind of cover the other two shots that you saw in the intro. One of those shots, there was no blue screen for the actors because a blue screen was too small and they both couldn't fit on it. And then the final shot, the actors are far in, more in the middle ground or background, which was a different challenge to figure out how to make them blend into the fog a bit more. And it requires just a little bit of tweaking of the fog technique. So I may follow this up with another tutorial on those things, but I didn't want this thing to be overly long and people be intimidated by the runtime. So thank you guys for watching. If you want to get Dehancer, you can use my affiliate code Obscurity for 10% off, and I will see you guys next time.